Hi, this is McLaughlin. This is my reflective vlog for the next 2 weeks. That would be week 13 and week 14. Just before I get into the actual kind of weeks, the reason why this is in covering 2 weeks is not because like other weeks where I've talked about where the second week is more, there's like half week, or it's like, I didn't really do much, or it's a catch-up day. The reason was because I'm actually working slightly behind. Usually what I do is, just so my schedule is, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are in the college, Saturday to like Monday I normally record, put this together. Just because the group project took up a lot of time of that spare time that I would actually use it normally for the reflective vlog, I've decided to kind of combine these weeks together, and just because it was the same kind of things we were doing, it kind of made more sense to mesh these 2 weeks together. So I'm going to call this like a mega week basically. And also Friday of the second week we didn't really do much, so it's only really 5 days I would say that we're kind of covering. So also before we get into the actual week, I'll talk about the kind of in-between. So this was as I mentioned the last week, I left that week with a lot of goals to get done by Wednesday. So just kind of recap what I'd done for my group as the lead director, as director of this piece. I basically put together most of the planning, kind of more boring kind of documents. So I'd done a risk assessment. This was basically just going on the risks and stuff like that. I location scouted because I live like 2 minutes away from the location. I went there, I took some pictures of the location, worked out where we could film, looked over the script and kind of went, okay, we need like kind of a more open area, we can use this area and stuff like that. I made sure, the biggest thing was I'm making sure this location scouting is how can we have a diverse kind of location. I didn't want it to feel like it was all shot in one location. So for example, like with the films, is that they all got kind of their own separate kind of locations. The thriller had a much more denser location compared to the sci-fi and stuff like that, and then the surrealism was a bit more open-ended. I kind of left it open-ended because the plan was to shoot at Albie's house, but that got a bit complicated. I'll talk about that on the day. So yeah, that's what I kind of done in the in-between. I kind of just done some documents, risk assessment, project proposal, I done some location scouting, and I kind of talked to my teammates. So let's get into the first day, but that would be Wednesday. Okay, so Wednesday was when we done our group project pitch. This basically was a PowerPoint that I created and kind of took input from my teammates, where basically kind of we pitched our film. So we went over what roles we'd be going over, what roles we would be doing in the group and stuff like that, and like kind of went over our overall film with our mood board. So what I decided to do was kind of break down the film into the four separate elements. It would be the overall film, and each of our own films, and the plan was that we'd each kind of take our film that was kind of our focus and talk about it. So Albie would be taking the thriller film because that was very cinematography heavy, and he was kind of the big person behind that. I would be taking the sci-fi drama because that was kind of more director and so like that, and the overall kind of film. And then Sarah would be taking the surrealism film because that was very editing heavy as the lead editor. Just a quick note before we got into this, Sarah unfortunately was ill that day, so couldn't actually come in, so it ended up just being me and Albie putting together the pitch. But so what we done, I just basically talked about Sarah's pitch. We kind of mentioned Sarah and how she wasn't there, but what she would be doing in the group and stuff like that. So this was basically the whole day, and basically what we done was we pitched it, and then we kind of chatted to people, got some input and stuff like that. And then obviously because it's 4 groups of people, 4 groups in the class, that took up all the day. Our pitch went overall pretty decent. I think people really participated very well to it, and people really liked the idea. And I'd say that's the main pro of this overall day, for going into pros and cons, is that I think the pitch really worked. I think it was very detailed and stuff like that, and I think it made a lot of sense. It kind of clearly outlined the film we wanted to make, and like the kind of mood boards also really helped kind of thinking about style and stuff like that. And I really think it really opened it up and stuff like that to people and made it easier to understand, and also the job roles were clear and how we were going to do it. But on the other side, I think a con that I kind of realised, me and Al, we realised after the pitch, and once we were looking over and stuff like that, is that we didn't really push people in the class for questions and stuff like that. And I think that's a problem because the idea is at that tight stage was very kind of, the idea was there, but if we needed a bit more input and stuff like that, I mean, we should have pushed people a bit more and like kind of asked more questions, kind of less open-ended, to kind of ask big questions so we could really kind of nail down the ideas. But overall, I think this was a pretty good day. We got kind of a pitch together and stuff like that, And originally the plan was that once we go into Thursday was that we would be filming and stuff like that, because most of it should be done by then. The pitch, it may be slight changes from the pitch that we'd do over the night, and then, you know, film Thursday. But we'll go into Thursday now, and I'll just explain why Thursday wasn't filming. Okay, so the original plan for Thursday was to film, as I just mentioned. This was actually delayed because of a big issue we kind of had in the group, where basically I got my stuff done, but Albie, for example, didn't get the shot list done, and Sarah didn't get a lot of her work done just because of time constraints and stuff like that. And also we ran into a lot of problem solving. So just go on the problems. The first problem we had was that so originally we were on the mindset that we could use ourselves as actors. So the plan was that me and Albie and Sarah would act in a film, and then that would outline, because the three characters we need for the 3 films. Unfortunately, last minute Sarah decided not to act in the film, and this created a lot of issues, because basically it was like, okay, now we've only got 2 actors, what can we do? So at this time we managed to sort this out. We actually managed to get Sarah's boyfriend, luckily, to star in the film. But it's this time as we were thinking about how to try and do this, one of the ideas we did come up with was that basically we would cut out a film, so there was only 2 actors and 2 characters, and then we would cut a segment. So the plan was to cut the thriller section because basically I think that was the most the smallest and the shortest one and stuff like that, so it made more sense to cut that, and that involved the most actors in it, so it's the most challenging one to put together from an acting point of view. So that was a potential kind of problem solving. Also, the second problem, we basically problem is to do with something we also done today, was that we done a pre-viz. So normally we don't really do pre-viz just because of a short deadline we have. We do just storyboards and script, but because we had that extra time and stuff like that, and it could have helped us kind of nail it down, is we done pre-viz, and this is basically where you kind of roughly film the film. You don't add effects and stuff like that. It's more about the camera work and stuff like that. So you kind of work out how to film it and stuff like that, and like, you know, you test out if shots could work and stuff like this. The pre-viz did run into 2 issues. The first issue, and this is going to problem solving, was that there was no audio. Unfortunately, on the camera we had our lead cinematographer Albie didn't do the settings right or something like that. Something messed up, you know, problems happen where no audio recorded, and this was a big problem because audio was a big part of the film. So what I decided to do as the lead director, and kind of talked about people, and we really kind of pitched this and, you know, talked about it, was that basically I'd dub over it with audio, just kind of explaining what was going on. And I think this actually benefited the film a bit, because it didn't explain a bit more to audience and stuff like that. And also another type of problem we had was just because it was just such a crunch time limit, stuff like that, and really this whole project, I admit, has been, time management has always been our biggest problem, is that we didn't actually have enough time to film the entire film. We actually only had time to film the in-between section, so this was like the bench, and the thriller film. So the sci-fi film, the surrealism film, I actually had to film by myself just because of time restraints. Albie's very busy, Sarah's very busy, and stuff like that. So what I had done was basically I just kind of like stuffed toys and stuff like that to represent characters, and kind of done the filming that way. So that's kind of how I problem solved that. It doesn't look the best, and I think if we had that time, and if we had more people and stuff like that, we would have actually pre-visited it properly. But I think it really did work out how we could do shots and stuff like that. It really did influence, especially the sci-fi drama film, got very heavily influenced by that previs and how it looked and stuff like that. And that's what we kind of done in that day. Some other stuff I'd done during the day was kind of, I went through the script, I kind of changed it a bit, I punched up. I mentioned this last week, but I thought the script was a bit weak in some areas, so I kind of went through it and had that little extra time of kind of like, so you can go through it, like really punch it up and stuff like that. And, you know, obviously we had the problem solving and stuff like that. So I'd say our main pro of that day was the problem solving, because at points we didn't even know if we would only have, like, what was going on and stuff like this. And so what we kind of done was we kind of really problem solved on the fly. We were really me and Albie especially, were really kind of quick on how we could problem solve it. It was pretty stressful on it, and it did create a lot of conflict and stuff like that, but we kind of calmed down a bit and really worked out problems to it. And if, you know, luckily enough we were able to get that 3rd actor, but I think if we didn't have that 3rd actor and stuff like that, we could have massively problem solved the entire film to work around that issue, but luckily we were able to keep it. So that was kind of the biggest pro of that day. But on the other side, I say the biggest con, and I think this is really due to me personally as the director of this. I'll take full responsibility for this as the director, as the leader of the group. I think we did have some poor leadership skills from me and poor kind of communication, because I think this led to a lot of conflict with, especially Sarah. Sarah, we had a lot of conflict with her acting in a film and stuff like that, and also we had the kind of conflict where work wasn't really getting done, and this kind of was the whole reason why the work was behind and stuff like that. So it really kind of was kind of more of a wake-up call as a director to kind of work out how to better manage people, and I think that's where kind of issues came into. But I say overall, this was a day that started off very stressful on it, but as the day went on and we kind of problem solved, we really kind of came to, me and Albie especially came together. I think it was a good day for the group, kind of lesson learned and stuff like that. We had our issues, but I think going into the next day, that was Friday, and that was the actual filming day, I think it really helped. So let's go into Friday, that was filming. Okay, so Friday was a big kind of filming day. So basically, we went up to Discovery, we filmed all of the film there, because I've talked about it before, but it's a good location, looks good and stuff like this. There was a couple of kind of issues throughout the day that kind of happens naturally when you're filming. Just to go over kind of like some of the issues and how we problem solved it. There's a scene in the movie, I'll show it here. Basically where you can see the two shadows of the people. We've done that because we thought it looked kind of cool and stuff like that. This was difficult, very difficult to film, because basically we had to stand around a bit and work out the right lighting and stuff like this, and kind of we had to do it at a certain angle where you couldn't see the shadow of the cameraman and the camera and stuff like that. And we managed to do it by basically the cameraman was standing in like the bushes area where it's hidden, so they couldn't be seen, and then like, you know, we done the scene. So I think that's how we kind of problem solved it, was that we waited a bit, you know, we worked out lighting, stuff like that. Other issues that we had was kind of just filming in locations, you know, you got actors and stuff like that, you got like, you know, we obviously we did talk to the Discovery Centre and the staff and stuff like that, and they're very helpful, and they said that we're right filming, just, you know, no nothing too extreme and stuff like that. And we did have problems where there was, you know, obviously it's a public park, there was people around. Kind of how we overcome those problems was basically we kind of talked to them and said, hey, we are filming a scene. I think there's a scene where I'm running and there's people there. It doesn't really matter because it's meant to be like, you know, a bunch of film students, but we checked with everyone and stuff like that, made sure they were right with it, and if they weren't alright with it, we would obviously film somewhere else, or, you know, work out on that issue. But, you know, that's another problem we had during the filming, was, you know, the actors and stuff like that. This is another problem we had with filming, that transferred over from the last shoot over the previs and kind of went on. We didn't realise until we finished the whole day, nothing recorded with audio. This was a massive issue given that the whole film, especially the bench scenes, relied on audio. So kind of how we overcome this problem is that, I'll talk about this a bit more in the editing process, but basically we made the three films silent, because they kind of work very silent. The thriller is meant, there was no audio in the thriller anyway, there's no talking and stuff like that in the thriller. They all had no talking in it, aside from the surrealism one, and kind of the surrealism one. So what we've done was basically we plan to keep the thriller and the sci-fi drama, because they both required no audio. You could add in like sound effects and walking and stuff like that. Then we would reshoot the bench scenes at a later date, and then the third film, the surrealism film, would do a bit of both. Because it's surrealism, you can kind of have a bit more weirder imagery, but we would film parts of that again. So that was kind of problem solving later on of that. So I would say the kind of overall pro of this kind of day is that, where is it, sorry, was our kind of group. We worked really well in a group, so it was me, Albie, Sarah and Sarah's boyfriend Luke, who was able to come and film the scenes for us, and I think it worked really well as a group. We kind of all got really along and stuff like that. We were really kind of, once we got past that initial bench scene, it was difficult to see because of, you know, audio and stuff like that. We really kind of, we really gelled. We started really kind of getting some dynamic shots and stuff like that. And I would massive props to Albie, who really made this shoot really good. He was very enthusiastic, and also he's very good with the camera, so he really made this shoot kind of really fun. And we all kind of got really along, and it was kind of a good day of just bonding and stuff like that. And obviously the audio problems did create issues, but I think the kind of cinematography and stuff like that we really nailed. The kind of con I would say was that kind of technical issue with the audio. I think at this point we should have really made sure we checked the audio. I think it was just because we were kind of very in a rush. It was very stressful. We kind of had gone through that day of Thursday where it was very stressful. And I think, but like, it's one of those things where I learn from it. And if I was doing these kind of separate, but I'm not, separate kind of things, is I would say the target for this week would have been kind of checking audio, reshooting and stuff like that, and going into that next week I basically had the mindset of we really need to schedule in those reshoots, kind of get the editing done and stuff like that. So overall I'd say this is a really decent week. We kind of done really well. There was some issues and I think there's problems throughout the filming process, but I think we really able to overcome those issues and really worked out how to work better as a group. The second week, as I mentioned before, it was only really 2 days I would say, so let's just get into the second week. Okay, the second week, or week 14 was basically the group project part 3, I would call it. So on Wednesday, in between actually, I did edit my segment, so I decided to take the sci-fi drama segment. There was 2 reasons for this. I say on a scale factor of editing difficulty, this was a middle tier editing difficulty. Sarah obviously took on the more difficult surrealism edit, because that was a bigger kind of chunky edit. Albie, who's not the best at editing, he admitted that, wanted more focus on the cinematography and post-production. Had the thriller because that was very much cinematography heavy, on your colour grade, kind of stuff like that. That was the original plan, but because Sarah wanted a bit more to do and stuff like this, and asked me personally if she could have a bit more to do, what we planned to do was we basically switched it around slightly. So originally, as I talked about, Sarah was going to have the surrealism, the overall edit. I was going to have sci-fi drama, and Albie was going to have the thriller. Sarah decided to take on the surrealism, the thriller. I decided to take on the sci-fi drama, and Albie would take on the master edit. That wasn't that difficult because it was just kind of sliding the footage together and maybe slightly tight colour grading it, but nothing that changed. So what I done was I edited this segment, and I think I done really well with the editing of the segment. I decided to do it in black and white because I thought it looked a lot cooler and stuff like that, and it kind of going for that purgatory feel. And we Sarah mentioned that being a cool thing to do in her editing plan, so I decided to kind of carry that over. I did have a couple of issues in the editing process. The first one obviously being the one that I talked about before, but I'll mention again. There was no audio, so what I done was I kind of used the kind of no audio to kind of add with the music that I chose from Sarah's editing plan, because Sarah basically created the editing plan, but she allowed kind of multiple options with the music just so we could cater the best to the footage we had. And I tried to choose audio like music, sorry, that really was kind of spooky and stuff like that, and added just really kind of very dense atmosphere to the film that I think really helped make the film more dramatic and stuff like that, and really played into that kind of spooky nature of it. So that was kind of a problem I had. I came to overcome it. I did have the times where the premiere crashed, or like it was very buggy. At one point, because of technical error, that I had to redo the whole edit of the film, and this was a pain. But I think I think this film actually turned out really good. I really especially like how it glitches, how the colour grading and stuff like that changes, and I think it's also very helped my Albie's great kind of cinematography. So week 2 was basically. So week 2 was basically us kind of editing the film, kind of doing those reshoots and stuff like this, and then obviously publishing the first draft of the film. So I think it went overall pretty well. We were able to basically reshoot the entire film, not the entire film, sorry, only the bench segments. Luckily that one of our friends, Elliot, was able to do it. And that went really, really well, and that kind of created, it kind of reshooting it kind of really bring the film together. And I think once we reshot those scenes to the bench, it actually really helped put the film together. So let's just go into that first day when we're actually reshooting. That was Wednesday. Okay, as I mentioned before, Wednesday was dedicated solely to reshooting the scenes. So what we done was me, Albie, and our friend Elliot reshot the entirety of the bench scenes. I think these actually look a lot better, so you had kind of more time to think about it and stuff like that. and I think it works all more naturally and stuff like that. And we added in a bit more, kind of made it a bit more comedic and stuff like that. That I think really much played into the themes of the film. Apart from that, I just kind of done some other little stuff, kind of made sure some checked up with Sarah to make sure how her kind of work was going and stuff like that. So I say the playing a pro from this day was learning from our mistakes. We kind of really, as I was talking about before, we kind of had those issues where basically there was no audio. So what we basically done was, before we left the college, got teachers to check it. We recorded some audio to make sure it'd work and stuff like that. And we really problem solved a lot of it, so we would not have that audio issue again. So I think that was the main pro of the day. Of that, we really kind of problem solved those issues of the audio not working. The con of the day, and this is to go into another part of the day that I forgot to mention, I actually reshot the surrealism scenes, because as I mentioned before, the surrealism scenes had no audio. What we decided to do with the surrealism film was that basically I would play both roles in my garden, because we thought that would be more surrealist and weird and kind of play into the faction to kind of nature we're going for. And I think this goes in the main con, just because I was very rushed and very stressed in this group project, just because we were a bit behind and so that, and the deadline was Friday. I did feel like the surrealism films scenes felt a bit rushed and a bit weren't the best they could be. So I think if we were to do this again, I think the surrealism film is the weakest film out of all three, and I think because of just how rushed it felt, and that's the main con. I think if we were to do it again, I would definitely reshoot those scenes. But Wednesday, as always, is a much shorter day. Even with filming taking up much of the day, there's not much to talk about. But let's just go on to Thursday, where the kind of editing and the final touches of the film came together. Okay, so Thursday was the kind of big editing and final push day. Due to, as I've talked about before, I've edited my own segment. I took more of a back seat in this day. I kind of finished up some work and kind of basically I oversaw the edits. So Sarah had already done Sarah was also not in that day, so I kind of communicated with her via Discord, and I think that goes into the problems we had was communication was a big issue. Sarah wasn't really responding to me and stuff like that. It was a whole thing, a lot of communication problems. But me and Albie, basically I sat with Albie, who was in the overall edit, kind of sat down with him and kind of sketched out the overall edit and stuff like that. And another thing I'd done in this day was because of time constraints and stuff like this, Sarah wasn't able to do the surrealism edit to what we thought would be the fullest degree. So I chatted with Sarah and she was really fine with me doing it. I chatted with my teacher and stuff like that. I basically done I'd done a first rough draft of the surrealism edit myself, and then the plan is that on the second draft Sarah can kind of do whatever she wants with that, just so we could have something there, because because of Sarah's time constraints, it didn't look like it didn't really match up and stuff like that. It wasn't in the VHS look and stuff like that. So I decided, because I had that extra time from doing everything, before, and kind of having that bit more extra time, I decided that personally as a director, I wanted to make sure this looked the best it can. So I decided to reshoot those scenes. So that was a problem we had due to editing mistakes, due to time management, stuff like that, and so not having all, being kind of busy. She was unable to do it, so we problem solved it. I problem solved it by going, hey, I'll edit it. Another little issue we kind of had was Albie had to leave due to be work, and the plan was that I would just finish up the edit on his computer. And basically what happened was the computer locked, just because I was helping out another group with their film, because I really want to work Mates College collaborative. So basically, kind of the problem solution, this is kind of more of a small problem solved, was kind of meshing Albie and getting his login, going on his computer and then exporting it myself. That's kind of one of the situations where it's a small problem, but that's how we kind of overcome it. Again, like Wednesday, this isn't a day where there's really much to talk about, and that's why I did combine these 2 weeks, is because the second week, I would say I took much more of a back seat on this kind of thing, and made sure that, took more of a back seat because a lot of the stuff I already done, and as a director, I thought it'd be better to kind of take more backseat and kind of start talking to people. So I'd say that's going to my main pro this week. I would say was my directing and kind of overseeing the project. I talked to Sarah quite a lot, even though she wasn't there. Made sure she knew what we wanted to do for the edit, and also really kind of me and Albie really collaboratively worked together. And I didn't just kind of steamroll through Albie's ideas. We kind of really took on for this. I think I really redeemed myself on this day. I'd say the biggest con for this kind of day was just because due to how rushed the whole kind of production was and stuff like this, I think parts of the film felt a bit rushed, especially the kind of overall edit. And the surrealism edit weren't the best they could be, especially the surrealism edit. As I mentioned before, I had to redo it, and didn't have a lot of time to do it and stuff like this. And I tried my best, but I think if we had that bit more time, we would have been better. And I think from the beginning, if we just time managed ourselves a lot better, it would have been like, a better kind of thing for the overall film, because it would look better, because it's like the thrilling edit's such an important part. I think against the other two, it does look kind of weak, and obviously we had more time. But we do actually have I'll be developing a second draft of this film, where I'll allow Sarah to have more time for the thrilling edit in the further weeks, and I'll talk about that when I get to that in the reflective vlog. Let's just go on to the final day, where we got the films and got feedback. Okay, as I mentioned, on the final day we kind of screened our films for people, and we got kind of feedback, and then obviously we watched everyone else's film, gave them feedback and stuff like this. The feedback was actually very positive for our film. A lot of people really liked it. I think a big achievement personally for our group was that we were one of the only out of the 4 groups who were able to get their full film done. And I can, I understand working on this film is that it's quite difficult to get a film done, but I think it was a big achievement as a group, given that we were at the underdog level, being a group of 3, were able to get it all done. I think that was a good kind of pro for like the week. This day we didn't really do much else. It was a half day, because after this was a Christmas break, so it allowed for us to finish early. We kind of just basically what we done was to watch the film, to be honest. I'm not really gonna go into pros and cons, because I don't think it is, but like necessary to kind of go into pros and cons. But I think the quiz went well. We actually did quite a survey also for it, where it asked questions, kind of what was the biggest advantage, disadvantage, all that. Basically, the survey was built so that like we could nail down the small parts that need to be changed. So if everyone, for example, everyone liked the sci-fi drama film, we can go, okay, we don't need to do that. We can change this part and stuff like that. And then the idea was that Sarah would take more of a lead on the overall edit of the film, to the people's kind of more opinions on what they had on the film. As I mentioned before, it's very positive. We did have slight kind of things people didn't like, or like music choices, and we will be rectifying that in the second draft. Just a small thing to go into with the quiz, with the questionnaire. I actually, and this is my fault because I created a questionnaire, I forgot to ask people what the biggest disadvantage of the thriller film, I think it was, in the quiz. And this questionnaire, the creative issues, is because then it's like, what the disadvantages of a thriller film, do we really know, stuff like that. Kind of how we problem solved that was I kind of just started chatting to people separately, because I'm friends with everyone in the class, I can just chat to them separately. The reason why I didn't just release another questionnaire was because I think at this point people already filled out the questionnaire, you wouldn't have got much responses. But if I just have direct communication with people, then it's much easier. So let's just go into the overall wrap up of this kind of week, and then we'll set ourselves a target that I'll review once they get back from the Christmas break. Okay, so let's get into the kind of overall wrap up of this week. This was kind of, I would say, the final kind of third trilogy of the group project. Obviously we've got the second draft coming up and stuff like this, but I think from this point onwards there won't really be a week dedicated to the group project. It'll kind of be us chatting together and kind of getting that second draft done whenever we can, whenever we've got extra time. So I think this week went pretty well. We kind of rectified the issues last week, managed to get the full, I think it's a 10-minute film together, and I think that's really impressive. As I talked about before, not a lot of groups were able to do that, and I think it's really impressive as a group, especially at that disadvantage we were able to do. And we obviously, I think we got a lot of positive feedback about it, and I think that makes it worth all the time and effort we've put in it as a group, that we're able to kind of get a lot of positive feedback. So I'd say that's my pro of the week. Is problem solving and looking back at other issues we've had, especially the audio issue, and kind of getting around it. So we had problems with the audio. Instead of repeating our mistakes, we made sure we checked the camera multiple times. We recorded test audio. We took that test audio off the camera and put it onto the computer just to make 100% sure what we were recording would record the audio. And luckily, it did record the audio. So I think that's a good thing that we kind of problem solved it. But I think the other kind of con was this. Apart from obviously the negative question that we forgot to ask about the thriller film, was that I think we did have some group issues and stuff like that, and like a lot of kind of a group arguing near the end, I would say, just because like Sarah, we had a problem with Sarah where she couldn't get the edit done in time and things like that, and like Albie took a while to do the group project, and I think just because it was the end, there was a lot of tensions high and stuff like this, and I think this goes into my main target going from this group project. And this week is, I would say my main target for the future is work better in a group and stuff like this. This won't be a target I'll probably review next week. It'll be more of a general kind of target for myself personally. I think I need to work better in a group and kind of work out how to better manage a group or work, secondary into a group and stuff like that. Because we did have some communication issues. We were managed to rectify them, but I think the communication issues this week kind of did get in the way of that edit. And I think that edit would have been a bit better if we had more time dedicated to it instead of kind of working out issues we had with each other. So that was the group project. I think overall, talking about a group project, I think I've done really well in this, and I think it was a really interesting experience. It's the most unique experience I've had. So basically what's going to happen is there's going to be a 2-week Christmas break, and then we're back. We'll be back in January in the new year to start a new kind of project. So there won't be a videos for the 2 weeks. It'll just be there'll be a short break, and then I'll be back after Christmas. So thanks for watching this Reflective Vlog. Sorry it's been quite long. I thought it'd just be better to kind of put together both weeks into a double special. So that's been this week's Reflective Vlog.